I say I'm shy about putting myself in front of the camera, but I don't know if you've been following this channel, but there are TV commercials, old Philippine TV commercials. I've uploaded. I actually uploaded these. These are not mine. They are copies given to me. So I don't know if they're actually, if that's okay, like in the public domain. But let's credit all those creative people who created those commercials, the brands, the producers, everybody, and the other talents who are in there. I hope posting those videos is okay with you. I hope you've also actually enjoyed it. Maybe you've lost your own copies. I would like to hear about that and hear from you again, because once upon a time we worked together, and that was really fun. But that was another life for me also. Different time, like what, 35 years ago. But anyway, the reason I posted them is because those were copies in Betamax, VHS, and CDs, and they are deteriorating, so I just wanted to preserve them and to archive them. So they've been in my YouTube channel for a while, but I just set them to public during the pandemic, I think, or right before the pandemic started. I can't remember anymore. So it's nice to know that people enjoy watching. For some reason, we all enjoy watching old Filipino TV commercials, or old TV commercials in general that we can relate to, especially those my age. Like, it gives you a reference, gives the young people also a reference for the 80s, because like now 80s is retro for the teens, where in my time it was the 50s, and my parents' time, diners and all that. So yeah, I just posted them for memories, and you can reference them if you like. But again, let's credit all the people who are there, especially the ones who created them. They're very creative and very, I don't know what to say anymore, just fun also to watch. Don't think that that's what we wore in the 80s. Some of them, the costumes are just a little too much, but if you think of the 80s now, you can look at it for reference, like argyle socks. There's pastel colors, and then there's also bright colors, neon colors, and gummy bracelets. I had those, Madonna time gummy bracelets. But this isn't really about fashion. It's not a vlog about fashion. I just wanted to thank again those who watched, and at the same time, I noticed these comments about, there seem to be many viewers surprised, and they say, wow, they are surprised that the Filipino TV commercials in the 80s, many of them were in English. And it's not just those in my channel. I've read comments in other channels also, especially about, there's this film, an old news feature. I can't say video because this was in 1965, or when Taal erupted, and they were interviewing people evacuating, or who evacuated from the Taal volcano area. And there's this young girl from Batangas, from Taal, who replied, or who was interviewed in English and who replied in straight English. And teens are surprised by this, like because these days, not as much as before, not as many people on the street can speak English as fluently as she did. So anyway, somebody commented about the TV commercials in the 80s using English. But actually, even now, there are still TV commercials in English and Filipino. And I don't know, maybe in radio, I'm not sure. But there are those in dialects also. It's also why you have now regional news. And anyway, so I'm guessing the commenters young, of course. Those who view these commercials could be both my age, but who like to remember, but also those who are young. And I don't know, I guess you find it amusing if you're one of those, to see how it was a time when MTV also started, so you can tell the style, the direction, everything, the cinematography, and of course the technology wasn't as developed yet. But anyway, yes, English was widely spoken in the 80s. Look at the history of our formal education. Our the Americans brought formal education to us, right? So of course my grandmothers spoke Spanish, and then their children, so who are our parents, now those now in the 70 to 100 years old range, they learned in English, they spoke English as well, not so much, no more Spanish for them. So that's where we're at. And then now, as I was saying, fewer, not as much people speak English on the street. So it was the medium of instruction. It still is, generally. That is why the fluency is probably why the call center is located here. Remember? Because of our fluency. We also had, since like the 60s, or I'm not sure, maybe even before, students from Thailand studying here. They came here, they studied how to plant rice, okay? And then now until now, Koreans were sent here and they studied English here. Note that our English is American, and you have India, Singapore, Malaysia. Their English is, of course, British English. So anyway, around the early 90s, or maybe even late 80s, because I was one of the first, I was in one of the first batches to be taught college courses in Filipino, like psychology was psikolohiya and philosophy was filosofia. So we were one of the first, and then our batch was the last of the batches to be required to learn Spanish. Prior to my batch, it was a requirement in college to learn Spanish. So I only had, I think, 2 years or even just 2 semesters. I'm not sure anymore. Can't remember. Getting old, but so there was a shift. Even ABS-CBN started that, helped with that by changing programming, especially the news. They started prior to that, news was mostly also read in English, and then they started reporting in Filipino, well, Tagalog. And remember, we have all these dialects, and so it is difficult for someone, say, from the Visayas to keep up with the Tagalog as well. But so there was that shift, and then I guess they saw a need for us to reinforce or to develop our sense of being Filipino and our culture, and of course language does that. You have to begin with the language. Now the when the K-12 curriculum was implemented, they also had mother tongue for the early years, no, kindergarten. I'm not sure if it's through grade 1. Can someone correct me if it's until grade 1 or 2, because those are that's early childhood, and there's a very solid reason for that, and I actually agree with it, because this is another topic, but the use of the mother tongue for early childhood is more effective, I should say, if that's assuming all those children in a class, for example, really do have that mother tongue as their native, or as their mother tongue, do have Filipino as their language at home. And why? Because what is education? You're supposed to teach how to teach a young child is to reach her where she's at, reach the child where she's at, and be able to be understood by the child, to also have the child express. And of course, you have to use the language a child uses at home. But that's another topic. We can deal with that later on. So anyway, there's so much to talk about, right, with regard to language or using Filipino. And we can go into long discussion or debate, but not here, please. Not now. Maybe if you'd like, then maybe you can comment, and that would be really helpful and really fun. If we could, I could even put you on the air. Anyway, just let's save that for another time. But there's also just a thought. I want to know what that commenter thinks, more than just the recognition that those commercials were done in English. I'd like to know what you think about it. Because to be honest, I'd like to say here, it hasn't been very nice. There's something like, it's even in my youth, and I think it still happens a bit now. I didn't like hearing Inglesera siya. Inglesera, someone who speaks English. Inglesera yan. And it was said with condescension, or a little, it really was negative. It's a little condescending. Like, there's a little prejudice going on. I mean, I know Jose Rizal, our national hero, said as much. I mean, he said, ang hindi marunong magmahal sa sariling wika ay higit pa sa amoy ng malansang isda or mabahong isda. So, he who does not love his own language stinks worse than rotten fish. That's the translation there. So I would like it known that I love my country as much as you, and I love being Filipino as much. So it really, I don't know where that comes from, that sort of condescension, or to say, oh, Inglesera yan, or it's like they imply that you are not authentic. Okay, to a certain extent. Like, if, I mean, it's not as if I try to put on another accent, let's say an American one, or something like that, or change who I really am. So I've been actually thinking about that a lot, about how we are, there are those of us who are Filipino too, but are somehow looked upon as maybe not loving being Filipino as much, or not having as much pride. And I'd like to correct that. It's not true. Maybe those who, if you were someone who looks at someone and says, oh, she speaks English in this area, she's like not someone to know more, then please try to think about try to maybe know the person more. That might help. And of course, while language, English, or speaking, whether a country speaks English or not, people, it doesn't really link to the economic success or economic gains of the nation, right? We know that, but it is a language of power, maybe more so in the past, but it's a universal language. So let's face it, this is how we can understand each other, whether it seems fair or not. It's just, well, it helps to, if you're going to live in a certain country, to learn the language, of course. But anyway, going back to the television commercials, which is what we started with, and the commenter who said that, oh, well, the languages, the commercials before seemed to be in English more. Anyway, so the language used in a TV commercial, and I need my advertising friends to back me up, and marketing people to also speak up and correct me. But I also was in advertising and marketing once, so I know a little bit. I think so. The language used depends also on the brand's strategy, the positioning, meaning who you're selling to. I mean, if you're selling to someone who is an English speaker, and or someone, or actually more of like, if they want you to use their brand, how to say, or if you want to sell the brand a certain way, let's say to certain people, certain demographics, then you use language or even lingo according to those demographics, right? So you can speak, in other words, dami ko pang sinabi. It's who can relate to it. And then there's also like what they call aspirational brand, like if it's maybe a luxury brand, and then luxury French perfume or something. And then of course, not that you'd use French to air it here, but maybe put on an accent or something like that. So it's how you want the brand to, or how you want people to relate to the brand, to the product. And then it's also, if the brand or the company behind it is a global one, a multinational, then of course you would have to use or they plan to use English maybe. Or like, for example, if those who enjoy watching the ads, like if you look at them closely, there are products that use visuals or TV commercials that are shot in different countries. Like we often have maybe for shampoo, I don't know now, but in the past, shampoo ads were in the shampoo capital, quote unquote, which is Thailand. And then, or because companies have regional offices and regional presence, and then so also they can just use that one material, that one ad, and then just dub each country's language. So you might notice, if you look closely, there are some, like you can tell sometimes for other brands where it's not here, or maybe someone's a different religion, or like wearing a hijab, then of course that means that's not but it can apply because we have Muslims also. So, but you can tell actually sometimes by the face, although we all look alike, Thai people, Indonesian people, Filipinos. So yeah, so you can see it's either driven by the brand's positioning and how they want it to be, to relate to the potential buyers. So anyway, that's a lot. This is just a lot just to respond to this one person viewer. There's only one person, no? To people who comment about English being the medium for TV commercials here in the Philippines. So anyway, I just, again, just the last point maybe, I want to know from the commenter what you think, more of what you think about this, because in the other videos I've seen comments about the language as well, the use of English, and people are actually getting into discussions about it, about why it's so, or should it be so, or but I'd like to again ask, please, stop discriminating, because it's funny, it's like a reverse kind of discrimination against, here in the Philippines, people who speak more English than Filipino. I mean, I just want you to know, we are Filipino too. As long as I mean, I don't condemn people who can't speak English, or yeah, Filipinos who can't speak English aren't really condemned anymore, or aren't laughed at or anything like that. And I can assure you, in the past there was something like that. So yeah, but that's again a different time, and it's about the time when we were a colony. So that's a different subject, and see, so much you can talk about. You can talk about it for the whole we can discuss so many things with regard to the use of language and our culture. And but that's all for now. I don't know how we got here, from the one comment on the TVC. But hey, if you want to learn, if you're a foreigner and you want to learn to speak Tagalog, you can start with watching those TV commercials also. It's how I learned Bahasa Indonesia a little bit, aside from talking to people out there. If you have no choice sometimes, if in a country they don't really generally speak English as much as here. Oh, and one last thing, enough na the nosebleed. Just try na lang. Those who don't know, for those who don't know, Filipinos have a joke where their nose they say their nose is bleeding when they can't speak or understand the English anymore. So anyway, yeah, if you want to learn, watch those TV commercials. That's one way. And or comment here and let's talk about this and more. Thank you so much. Really appreciate it. The sun is setting. I'm here by the window because there are two things I love, two times of the day I love: sunset and sunrise. And today is special. It's the full moon day today. So I'm gonna see, is the moon out? Is the moon out? I'm sure it is. Moonrise. So I'll try to get a shot of that for you. Thank you.